All right, we're going to time out there, Alyssa. We are at 10 minutes. So before we kind of get into my portion of the feedback, why don't you go ahead and share your thoughts on this level 3 lesson? Awesome. I love this self-reflection that you're able to see some of the areas that need improvement, but also you're able to see where some of your strengths are in the lesson. So what we'll do is kind of go throughout the slides and discuss as we look at the different slide parts. If you wouldn't mind going back to slide 16 with the China as a country, we'll start there. As you're making your way back there, a few things that just overall throughout the lesson you did really well. I thought you were very encouraging, friendly, and supportive throughout the lesson. You showed that by giving frequent rewards to the student. You spread it out very nicely throughout the lesson, giving them at some of the different slides, as well as having a lot of verbal praise. You told me good job, thumbs up, you were very smiley, as well as some high fives, which was really nice to see. It built a good rapport between you and I as the teacher and the student, and it really made me want to respond for you. So I thought that was really good. Another thing you did well was TPR. You used very consistent instructional as well as educational TPR. I understood when you wanted me to repeat you. I understood when you wanted me to answer one of your questions, as well as just kind of pairing gestures with words that I may not know. Language, you showed hands talking, you did a nice flag throughout, and that really helped with my understanding of some semi-unfamiliar words to me. All right, now that we're at slide 16, one thing that you did do really well was be very friendly. However, be careful with getting too excited and having too grand of gestures or getting really excited and giving too exuberant, I should say, of high fives. Sometimes I found myself watching you more so than listening to the content because your gestures were so grand. So just be careful that your energy level doesn't distract from the lesson. And it's able to kind of help pair and supplement the learning. One thing you did do really well on this slide as well as the others is whenever there was a teacher direction at the bottom, you made sure to focus on that. That is important to kind of add that extra discussion between you as a student and will help support that flipped classroom concept. One thing that I find beneficial for some of these level 3 and higher lessons is when you are discussing some words that kind of have abstract meanings, is to have visuals prepared. For example, government. When we think of our government, we think of the White House. When they think of their government, they think of the president or Tiananmen Square. So having these visuals prepared ahead of time can help reduce the chance of students asking questions because they don't understand. In my experience, the students know these words, they know the definitions, they're just needing to pair the Chinese word with the English word, and a visual helps to support that. It is required 2 props per lesson, but the more props you have that will really support, supplement, and enhance your lesson will really help with the overall pace of that lesson. All right, if you wouldn't mind jumping to slide 17. Thank you. So on this slide, another thing that can be really important and help aid in the pacing process is introduction of the vocabulary words. So just a quick pronunciation demonstration of the word flag, flag, cloth, cloth. Hey, my shirt is cloth. Alyssa, do you see something around you that is cloth? Ah, very good. Yes, my blanket is cloth. Nice job. Good find. Alyssa, represent. Represent. Yes, great job. Alyssa, can you read, please? That way, you're demonstrating for the student how to pronounce the word. Oftentimes, they'll be able to pronounce them correctly. Sometimes they won't. Represents is a hard word here. But by demonstrating, you're hopefully helping with the pacing process of this lesson. A thing you did really well was I liked to see your expansion questions on this slide. You asked the student to describe the Chinese flag, you asked them about shapes that they see on the flag, and that was really nice because that is a big component of the flipped classroom. Don't be afraid to ask some more connecting questions, meaning, where do you see the flag? I see the flag at school. Ah, yes. Are there other cities that you see the flag? Very good, that's right. I see the flag in Beijing. To really help the student engage and connect with that material. One thing that is important with the flipped classroom is complete sentences, making sure that the student is consistently using them throughout the lesson. So as you're going along, making sure that as you're asking a question, the student should be using part of your question in their answer. For example, you asked Bryce to describe the Chinese flag. The Chinese flag being a complete sentence like, the Chinese flag is red and yellow. What shapes do you see on the Chinese flag? The Chinese flag is a rectangle with 5 stars. Just those complete and detailed sentences. The more that the students use those, the more you'll see that flipped classroom fall into place. All right, how do you feel about that? Awesome. If you wouldn't mind now, the next slide that we'll go to is the represent slide. That's slide 19. I liked to see your explanation of represents before this one. You brought it back to the American flag. When I see, I think of. That's very helpful for the student. But then you also focused on that target vocabulary word, represents. You used it throughout the slide, which is important. You did a nice job demonstrating how to use it in a complete sentence. My only thing for this slide, and it kind of happened in a couple other slides, is just making sure that you're consistently correcting, making sure that you're hearing those pronunciation errors. On the Chinese flag, the student mispronounced cloth as well as represents, so making sure that you are able to correct the student each time they do mispronounce. Sometimes when it happens in longer sentences, I like to underline the word. It's not distracting for the student, especially at this level. I think they're kind of used to that happening. So don't be afraid to do that to kind of help remind you of words that they may have mispronounced. As well as on this slide, the student mispronounced the word Nike. You caught it, and you made sure to demonstrate for the student the correct pronunciation of it. However, you didn't have the student pronounce it himself. So just making sure that you are very consistent with pronunciation as well as having the student speak that correction. Other than that, you kind of expanded again on this slide, discussing what the student likes to eat at McDonald's. The student spoke very well in complete sentences on that part. So again, remembering that consistency with those complete sentences because the student is capable of it. So overall, Alyssa, very friendly and supportive. A lot of rewards were given throughout the lesson. You used good expansion questions and paired TPR. You focused on the teacher directions. But a couple areas for improvement is just making sure that your energy level doesn't increase your speaking speed and doesn't detract from the lesson. It is there to help support and supplement the learning. Making sure you introduce the vocabulary words, demonstrating the appropriate pronunciation for those, as well as falling in that flipped classroom a little bit better. Having the student speak consistently in complete sentences, having the student engage the material, making more connections to themselves as they go throughout the lesson, and then lastly, just making sure that you are consistently correcting pronunciation as well as some grammatical, and then having the student speak those corrections throughout. All right, Alyssa, that's all that I have for you on this level 3. Do you have any questions? All right.